Welcome back to Capitol Review. I'm Mark Hall. A new poll was released this week by the University of Maryland, Baltimore County's Institute of Politics. It gives us a look at how Marylanders feel about the state's budget and the Key Bridge rebuild. When asked how state lawmakers should handle the $1.4 billion shortfall in next year's General Assembly session, 41% want the budget deficit addressed only or mostly with spending cuts to state government programs, while 40% want the budget deficit addressed by a combination of spending cuts and increases in taxes and fees. And 10% want the budget deficit addressed only or mostly with increasing some taxes and fees. Meantime, they were also asked how much time it will take to rebuild and reopen the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The bridge collapsed back in 2024 after a cargo ship crashed into it, killing 6 people. Maryland voters expressed some optimism. 25% say that it will take less than 5 years, while 54% say it will take 5 to 10 years. 12% say to 11% say that 20%, and 3% say that more than 20 years. Joining us is Dr. Mileah Kromer. She's the director of the UMBC Institute of Politics. Dr. Kromer, welcome back to Capitol Review.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're always glad to have you. Your poll covered a lot of topics recently. Where do Marylanders stand on the budget deficit?
So first and foremost, Marylanders certainly recognize that the state is facing a budget deficit. We asked Marylanders about the sort of key issues facing the state. Around 25% are going to name something like cost of living, economy, and jobs, but another 23% mentioned specifically the budget or government spending. When we ask folks how they'd like to see the state government address the budget deficit, what we find is 41% of Marylanders say that they want to address it only or mostly through spending cuts and no tax increases or fee increases. Another 40% say they're willing to entertain some sort of mix between spending cuts as well as increases in taxes and fees. And a minority of the state, about 10%, say that they would like the state to address the budget deficit through an increase in taxes and fees and leaving those state services alone. That's certainly a minority opinion in the state. And of course, like, the details will matter, right? So the combination of spending cuts or taxes and fees, if that's even on the table, that will, I think, really eventually, we'll have a closer look at public opinion then than compared to now.
Dr. Kromer, the Key Bridge has been a major concern. What do the numbers show?
So what our numbers show is that Marylanders, I think, have certainly been paying attention to the news regarding the cost and the timeline with the Key Bridge construction. Around half of Marylanders believe that the Key Bridge will be up and running again, rebuilt and rerunning in about 5 to 10 years. So that's where the majority of folks are at. Other folks are certainly a lot less optimistic, and some people are really optimistic and think that it'll be rebuilt in the next 5 years. When we asked about the impact that it's had on the Baltimore metropolitan area, what I find is really fascinating is it's not just Baltimoreans and not just folks from this immediate area who recognize that there's been an impact on that area. It's folks from across the state. So the majority of Marylanders recognize that it has had some or a lot of impact on the Baltimore metropolitan area.
Well, Maryland lawmakers made history recently, electing the first Afro-Latina and the first immigrant to serve as House Speaker. Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick from Prince George's and Anne Arundel counties. Can she work well with the Moore administration? Because there's concern that maybe she might be too progressive.
I don't think that's going to be a major concern. One of the hallmarks, I think, of now Speaker Pena-Melnick is she's somebody who is in the legislature a workhorse, somebody who has gotten bills passed, has a track record of getting things done. And as a speaker, she will be in charge, or at least partially in charge, of the legislative agenda. And she, I think, has the ability to pass a legislative agenda, as evidenced by her previous work. And, you know, across the party lines, while she certainly is a progressive, there's no doubt about that, she is somebody who has a reputation of being able to work with a wide variety of folks. I think there's no better indication of that if you look at the most conservative members of the Maryland General Assembly, many of them have spoken out and said positive things about her speakership and her election to be the speaker. And so, yeah, of course, there will, you know, the Maryland legislature might have some conflicts with the governor sometimes. They might have conflicts within themselves. But I think the pick of Pena-Melnick is a smart one because she is going to be able to advance a legislative agenda. And hopefully for Governor Moore, he will want to be part of that legislative agenda and help drive that with her.
Dr. Mileah Kromer, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.